Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Friends with Boundary. I am your host, Chris Chung, and with me again is our guest who gave us a fantastic breakdown of what boundary is, Jacqueline Rodriguez. How are you doing today?
Good, Chris. How are you?
I am good. Our conversation from last time really got a lot of good topics to come about, and I sure hope that our audience enjoyed it. We want to dive a little bit deeper in today, and I'm really happy to have you back. I was wondering how did it go for you? How did the conversation affect you?
Well, it's funny. I mean, boundaries is definitely something that I cover quite a bit in my sessions. I run various groups with young adults and
Mm,
families and then family therapy. So I feel
yeah,
like I've just been talking about it more. I think that's what's been happening. Every
yeah.
every example they share, I'm like, boundaries, it's amazing how much work we do with it and you don't even realize that that's what we're doing. So more awareness.
Yeah, fascinating. And it's true. A lot of times we are talking about our behaviors, how our emotions come to be, and somehow it ties back into what are the expectations I've set? What are the boundaries, right? Or how did we learn to say yes to certain things, say no to many things, and understanding ourselves? That's kind of where the start is. And it affects relationship in a big part. And today, I think I'm excited to talk about this topic because in the previous episode, I've already started talking how we develop those ideas, how we develop our values, how we develop some of our, maybe not so much develop, but more laid as a foundation for our expectations for life. And much of it is in our growing up experience, how we, our children, are taught what's good, what's bad, what's okay, what's not okay. And that is kind of what we like to dive into today because for me, I think that sets up a really strong tone of how we start selecting who our friends are and later on who we want to have build our lives with, and eventually perhaps, and again this is a choice we made to be in a committed long-term or a marriage relationship, right? And all of this kind of factors in, and I have to think about it. Where did all these start? Where? And it was just the language that was never given. It's how we grew up. So being a someone who works a lot with family, myself and you as well, let's dive into it. When was the time that you first started making these connections, like, oh, these are some things that I learned in family and I learned in my younger years?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, and I it's a cultural thing too, right? Like I could see it
Yes.
very much with I work predominantly with a Latino population here in South Miami. Um but it is something even for me when growing up, and I'm, Colombian American. I remember even my parents being like, "Okay, the adults are meeting, so go to your room now." And it's kind of
Yes.
like, "Wait, I have so much to share. Like I want to talk too." And then I will say I kind of recreate that sometimes with my kiddos. Like as much as I want them to participate in these adult moments, there are times where as adults you want to have your time. And so you kind of excuse your kiddos. And then I guess I just think of other families that don't do that. And
Mhm.
then those kiddos have more opportunities, or they have the ability to just be in these moments and these experiences where they're not afraid and they're not shy and they're not being corrected, and
Mhm.
all these kind of things that I think about, like what is the right thing, right? It's hard to know, and every family's so unique, but you start to internalize that. Okay, I shouldn't speak now. Okay, this is not my time. Okay, let me wait. And let me tell you, in grad school, I remember, New York City being the one who would like raise my hand at the board meeting, and all my other friends are like, just shouting out their answers and being clear. So you kind of notice, like, oh, I was, brought up a little differently, and I don't want to say shame, but there's an
Mhm.
element of like, maybe you don't want to hear what I have to say. Maybe I'll pause. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
wait my turn. So just interesting.
Yes. I think that's a big one for sure. The distinction between adult and children is modeled as you're in this with this group, you should stay within this table, the kids' table. I don't know if you had that.
Oh yeah.
Very, very clear about what's considered adult conversation, what's family conversation, what's youth, more children type of interest, and it was a more defined, I would say, a more defined structure in my growing up experience, and that led me to similar as you. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to talk over someone, especially if someone is older than me or has a more authority position. And encountering that is so differently with others. Once you start making friends or you go to you know university, people just want you to be assertive, which in my mind translates to aggressive. So it really was a very interesting back and forth for me to learn what is okay, what is not okay.
Oh, absolutely. And then it's almost like then you think about it, and then we go off and take our perceptions, experiences, right? And I see it with patients, myself, with the groups that I run, friends, and we recreate these kind of, inner traumas or expectations with the friends we pick, with the partners we pick, how we raise our kids, right? So it's just really like, wow, it all connects. And when we can get right with why am I this way, then I understand why certain things trigger me, right? And that's where it all begins, right? Like, how do I establish that space for myself in a relationship with family? So it's all very connected.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just that in our conversation, this is the first boundary kind of modeled after, and it's so not so much right or wrong, but it's just is, and how we can understand not just ourselves but others when there's a generational expectation, a deference, a respect, sort of modeled in some families. That's absolutely the not right, but for them it works to have order, to have structure, to know how information flow. For others, they want everyone to be in the know. Children know a lot what's going on, the stressors that goes on with the family, right? And that typically doesn't happen in my family. They keep the adults problem to themselves and try to keep it away from children. And I get it. And it it's not part of what they want the children to be part of the solution or part of that conversation. And there is also a balance too, because at some point you want them to develop the ability to think. Maybe not so much as youth, maybe towards teenagers, but I never had that opportunity. It was kept so separate that I still felt like a child, even though I was in my 18, 19, 20s, because there wasn't much preparation. It was almost like expected that I know how to function like an adult. So, pros, cons, I don't know how you want to kind of term them, but age and the level of involvement is one area of boundaries that I see.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, you have me thinking now, my sister's 10 years my senior, and so we often joke, like, we definitely have the dialogue, and that's really what I would encourage your listeners, like, always have the dialogue, right? It's when you're able to, right? So
Mhm.
we do have the dialogue. It's taken many years for us to get there, but she will often joke and say, "God, it feels like you had different parents," because mom and dad, same mom and dad, she's 10 years older. And yeah, when they were bringing her up, oh my God, imagine like immigrants to this country, like super hardcore, tightly knit, don't trust anyone. Like she always jokes about that. She's like, God, mom would always tell me, don't trust anyone. And look what it's done
Wow.
for me. And I guess 10 years later, we joke about it. My mom was, I guess, maybe more free, more maybe older, maybe tired. And, I got the dialogue on, the birds and the bees and the boys
Mm,
and don't do this and do this. And
yes.
I don't know, there was more of a flow of dialogue, which I guess in turn, that's why I became a therapist. She became an attorney, but it's funny, right? How it all relates. Like, oh, when there
Mhm.
is dialogue, different things happen, right? You're able
Mhm.
to, I don't know, you're a little bit bolder in the questions you'll ask, right? You
Yes.
feel a
Mhm.
little safer in exploring. And I can
Mhm.
see it with, patients, with the groups, with friends, how willing folks are to share about themselves, how willing they are to share about their opinions, and then how they kind of close up and it's almost like, okay, pass the salt. Like we don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and there's nothing that's right or wrong, right? It's just where do I need to stretch, right? Because
Mhm.
for me, it might be I need to talk less. And then for other people, it might be, hey, it's time to talk more, to
Yep.
share, So
Yes.
very interesting.
That is absolutely this how I feel that I should speak up more. And yeah, I find that to be in the circle of my friends groups or even at work where they are welcoming some of my thoughts, opinions, right? But there, I typically don't take that step until permission is given, whether it's explicit or implicit. And then for those who are on the other end, they're not typically ones to ask for permission. They would just bring their thoughts, and I would feel like, oh, their thoughts are so much better than mine. I'm gonna keep quiet. I'm gonna let this conversation continue to go. And I learned over time, it doesn't provide the group with more enriching conversations by offering at least different perspective, even if theirs seem to me they're on the right track or better. Maybe offering a different perspective or added element to the conversation helps. But in my family, that was not typically modeled. It was those who have the authority, those who seem more knowledgeable, are the ones to you know have the floor, so to speak. And you also brought up a good discussion that I would like to segue to how we begin learning how to interact with people of same genders and opposite genders, and talk about connections, even into the talks of sexual relationships, or even the talks of sexual being ourselves, right? um Different family have different ways. Mine has no way. They don't talk about it. They let someone else take care of that education.
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
to solve that for myself. So I can see where it was a big development for me to interact with females as I grew older. Yeah, even as a youth, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a cultural thing more than anything. I think
Mhm.
definitely gender plays a role too. I often joke, I'm glad I didn't have a son because my husband would have been very different with our son versus the daughters, and
Mm,
maybe I would have been too, but there is like a double standard of how, I don't know, I just see it in a lot of families and I could be wrong. I'd love to hear feedback on that, but just how you interact more with the daughter versus the son, it's just very interesting, the information you share, the things you expect, the things
mm.
you allow. Even in the Latin culture, that they're almost like encouraged to be these, like, sexual beings, and I'm like, they're only four, like, just let them play
Yes.
for a minute. But there is that, I do
Hmm.
notice that. Yeah, so I feel like there's that discrepancy, like, just, the information you get and how you process it and what adults are willing to share. So my feeling has always been, I did have a good experience. Like, my mom did share more. My mom, I think she took the lead with us, but she shared more about, like, this is what you do and this is how it is and be careful with this. And I find that I do that with my daughters for sure. Like, I'm the one that I will drive the point home. My oldest, I mean, she knows, if you have questions, ask me. I will give you the facts, and then you can go
Mm.
to your friends and hear whatever they tell you. But I want to at least equip them with the
Yes.
facts, right? Because I've had so many stories in session where young girls are sharing things and I'm like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, they didn't tell you that that means this and this means that, and just the
Mm.
basics, right? I'm not talking
Right.
about any of the nouveau ad lib
Mm.
stuff going on, but just the basics about sexuality and your body and
Yes.
protecting your body and all these different things. And if you're not taught, then it's almost like you're praying for the best, right? You're just hoping your kid figures it out. And I think that's a lot to put on a
Hmm.
kid to figure it out. The other thing a colleague had shared with me once is, if you don't share with them, the world will. So
Yes.
make the
Absolutely.
decision and do that. And they say you do it when the kiddos are giving you something to go with, right? So my youngest haven't yet really um shared things that I'm like, okay, let's sit down and have this dialogue. But when my oldest was ready, I knew she was ready, because she'd be like, Mom, what does this mean? And Mom, what does this mean? And Mom, and so if you're asking me, I don't want to be the parent that gets uncomfortable and nervous and
Yes.
worried, even though I might be feeling that inside. It's your
Hmm.
moment. So I wanted her to have her moment, and I would share whatever she was able to hear, right? Because she's
Yes.
very good at being like, okay, too much, too much. And I'm like, okay, I'll pull back now, and that's enough for her. That's all she
Yeah.
needs. And as she gets older, I know she's going to share less, obviously, but that if there's less judgment, right? And I
Hmm.
struggle with that as a parent. I'm sure the moms on your listeners can relate, but it's hard, right? Because we judge, again, going back, Chris, to what you were saying, our own stories and
Hmm.
how we were raised. It comes out. It bleeds
Yes.
into your family, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's Great to hear about the side where I don't get that kind of education or that discussion because of being viewed as a male or being treated like a man, right? And I had a lot of learnings over the couple of years, like how much I didn't know about what young girls are being taught, how they were being prepared. Before I go into that discussion, I do want to commend that you were able to set a great open dialogue with your daughters, with your children, right? And they are able to kind of come to you, feel safe to talk to you about things. And that is not a suddenly they want to come and talk to mom about these things, but it's over time you build that trust that you will give them the information they need. You will also be open and non-judgmental, be a safe space. That is the definition of a safe space between a parent and child, that later on they will come, they will ask, they will have a dialogue. They will, take in a lot. They may not agree fully with everything, but at least they're there to listen. And perfect example of saying enough, enough, that's a boundary. It's like,
Yeah, too
okay,
much. We're done.
too much. Yeah, okay, great, you let me know, and when you're ready we can have some further conversation. In for the I guess I don't want to say that the guys, or I capture all the fully the male experience, but I do notice in a lot of uh, people that I work with, or people in that I encounter as boys and male, we don't have those discussion that puts in anxiety in us or fear in us about um, how to be treated, how to treat others. It's almost expected that we know how to handle a relationship, or how to, take lead, or even just, uh, eventually be quote unquote the man of the household. Which there's a big learning there. Just because there was not talked to me, I had to find out, learn, trial error, and it's unfortunate. I feel like there could be a lot more discussion on preparing young men to be responsible male in both friendships and relationships with girls.
Oh my goodness. I have a lot to say on that because it is true, right? There is a certain sentiment from even going way back to like boys aren't supposed to cry and boys aren't supposed to feel and boys aren't,
Hmm.
and we can have all different feelings on that and opinions on that. But there is something where, my gosh, boys are set out into the world to just go and create and produce. And it's very primal. It's like, okay, and now you will, to your point, lead the home. And it's like, but with what tools? Like where's my tool bag? Like
Hmm.
what was I given? And I agree with you, there's almost like an element of it. I don't know if it's like, now that I'm thinking about it, boys may not ask the questions as
Yep.
often, right?
Correct. Hmm.
Or maybe they weren't given permission to know that they could ask the question,
Hmm.
right? Because if you're supposed to be tough and strong and don't cry and act like a man, I mean, all these different things, right, that go back years, generations, it isn't very safe to ask the question. And then what do you do when you're thrown in the situation? It's trial and error. It really
Hmm.
is. And therein we need that safe space. Like I have these two male support groups that a colleague in New York said they started. And I was like, that's so cool. Like just for like male dads, dads to just, figure it out, or dads going through divorce, or, just geared
Hmm.
towards dads. Because I
Yes.
think there is something missing where, hey, you're allowed to feel too. You're allowed to be confused.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate. I think it's a lot harder, honestly, to raise a man than to raise girls into women. Just my
Yeah.
thought. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear people's thought on that. But I'm glad I wasn't given the chance. So I can't mess that one up. But I think it's hard. And I'll be honest,
Hmm.
even just as a mom, thinking like, I think I might have babied him a little more. I think I might have been like, I don't know. I just wonder about that sometimes. Like, and then you grow up into this male body. And so what do you do now? Where do you
Hmm.
go to get your information? So I agree with you. I think it's almost like double hard for them.
Mm.
I think there needs to be space and resources for them to ask the questions and to know that it's okay to mess up, right?
Yeah.
Like no one has it perfectly.
Hmm.
No one
and
that I
and that is exactly what brought up for me is, um as a young male, that shows you're almost this expectation of you need to have it together, you need to figure it out, and getting help is only what you do when you are completely out of your element, when you don't have any tools. So you have to get to that point before you can seek out help. And the on top of that, for me, it's I don't even know what questions to ask. I know many people tell me, "Oh, you can ask me anything," but you know, what questions am I supposed to be asking? It seems like it's not that natural or obvious, and so instead of asking questions, I'd try things out, trial and error, and I don't know. Maybe for some, it's that's the way to do it, but it really was not helpful for my development. In that I
I
am less curious. I feel less conversational, and I don't reach out for help until I need to reach a point of desperation. That's when I need to ask for help. That's really just unfortunate. I think there's a lot more when there's a lot more guidance and resources, and a safe space, particular to you know give us more of the language or the words to say, the questions to ask. That will be helpful. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also the dads on sons, right? Like it's a beautiful thing if we start somewhere, right? Like so if the first dad could then begin that healing by saying to his son, "Hey, I didn't know either." And, "Hey, I didn't know what I was doing, but we do the best we can. And whenever you
Mhm.
have questions, you come to me." And almost like how do we equip the first man to do that? And I'm sure there are men out there that are doing it, and men who've been in therapy for years, and great. But knowing that it's okay to need a mentor, it's okay to need
Mhm.
someone that, like, I love that for me. I have women who I turn to, women who just have more wisdom, more years in the field. I need that, right? I heard someone say the other day at this conference, the next 5 years will be dictated by the people you hang out with, the places you go, and the books you read.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like, thank you. Like, thank you for giving me permission to prune my life, and to choose better, and to ask folks that I trust. I need help. I need help here. Someone, white flag. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's
Mhm.
nice to know that that's okay to do,
S-
right? It has to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope that this helps our listeners to give yourself that permission to go out. Maybe even say, I don't know what questions to ask, but I know I like to learn. I like to grow in some capacity, being a husband, being a mom, being a daughter, being a son, anything. We have so many different identities that it it can only benefits us to learn from other perspective and adopt and grow. And definitely in what was missing in then, because I had lacked that kind of space and learning. Um, it really brought up a lot of conflict in the first year of my marriage. I'll dive in there. As a young adult, um, with people, I think the expectation for me is, you'll figure it out. You just go through it and you'll figure
Right.
it out.
Right.
I think that really opened my eyes as I learn to be a husband, is that the small things matter, not in the way that we think, oh, we need to do dishes, we need to take out garbage, but every one of these tasks communicates something. And for me, it was learning that I just do what I think I would help myself and what's good for me, and I don't take another perspective until that it becomes a source of conflict, and we get confused. I get confused a lot of times why it's a big deal, why it's a conflict. An example I will give is even taking the time to go grocery shopping. For me, that's a chore. That's something that let's boom boom get it done. But for my wife, it's about spending time together. Even if it's a mundane task, there is a uh, something that fills what she was probably lacking in the past, is an element of loneliness. Now we're doing this. So now that changed my whole outlook of what that meant for her. I wasn't going to see it that way unless I open myself up for that conversation, right? But again, I've come to these areas of I do it my way. I think it'll be fine. We'll solve it. We'll solve it as long as it has worked for me all this time. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, kudos to you for vulnerability. Awesome, Chris. I love that because, it's hard to be vulnerable and share that, right? Like those feelings of, wait, I see it this way. And you said it for your wife, it's an experience, right? I can relate to that, right? Maybe it's a gender thing, but it's true. It's like same for my husband and I. There are those times where he's like, "Hey, you were really mean to me." Like he said that to me the other day, and I was like, "I was." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "The world thinks I'm so nice. How could I have been mean to you?" But again, our real selves come out with our family, with our partners, right? With our kiddos. Like they get to see all of you 24
Hmm.
hours a day. So
Yes.
it's very easy, right, to sound good in a 1 hour meeting, a 2 hour conference, a podcast, but it's like the day to day, right? Like, how would your people say you
Hmm.
are? How would they say your mood is? How would they say you react when you're triggered? So that was really cool that you were able to say that. And same for me, like, I was able to, and not always, because if I'm caught up in my own, which I think we all are as humans, right? We're caught up in our own head and like what we need to do. And especially if we have a masculine brain, feminine brain. I mean, there's a
Mm.
whole thing there, right? So if you're more
Yeah.
into your feminine energy versus masculine energy, yeah, you're going to think differently. So I think sometimes even that's why partners they pick each other. It's like, "Oh, this fits. You complete me. You're the part of me that I was missing." And
Hmm.
then 3 years later, right? I mean, tell me about it. You realize, "Oh, wait, I was wrong. I have to complete myself because otherwise I'm looking to you to fill me all the
Yes.
time. I'm
Hmm.
looking to you and I'm guilty of this, right? Less now, but definitely more as a newlywed. For you to fill the part of me that's empty, right? The part of me that's
Yeah.
broken, which all of us have. And in the end, it's like, no, I have to kind of fill that on my own and invite you to walk with me so that
Yes.
when you say no, I don't decompensate. And I
Hmm.
relate. I relate to both sides, no judgment. I've been on both ends of that, where
Mm.
it's like, why don't you want to do this? Or I'll be annoyed if something is brought to my attention, right? So now I've gotten better at, like, for instance, when he was like, "Oh, you were really mean to me," and that like threw me off. I had to appreciate my husband being vulnerable. If we're talking
Mm.
about what we're talking about, men don't have the permission or space to say that. And so instead of making it about me, which I love to do, I was like, "I'm sorry. I'll be better." And later we get to talk about me, right? Later I'll get to bring up, "Hey, the reason I acted that way was because of this." But
Hmm.
not every moment has to be, and this is more for me, like a win for me. Like, not every moment has to be like, "Oh, I was able to be heard." I had a friend say that to me once recently. She's like, why the need to always be understood? And I'm like, "What do you mean? I need to be understood." And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. Like, just receive and turn the page. And it
Hmm.
makes for like an easier, softer, I don't know, morning or experience or day to
Hmm.
day. Like,
Yes.
so kudos for the person who shares, and then kudos for the person who's like, "All right, thanks for telling me. I'll be better at that." Right?
Yes.
That's like, wow. Okay. The next moment, we both show up better, hopefully.
Hmm. And that's huge. What you just unpacked for us. A lot of times, people are seeking relationships because they have a void they want to fill, and they're hoping and putting all of that on their partners. And when that does not happen, a lot of self doubt, a lot of doubt about the decision, a lot of the doubt about the relationship, and there is an element of yes, it would be amazing if our partners can walk alongside us, but they're not there to repair or to fill that hole. Um, there is a lot of work we can do for ourselves, and how we are both in the faith. We have God help us
Amen.
learn to build ourselves up and to be the best version of ourselves for our relationship, for our partner, and not decompensate when they say I can't, I'm not able to, and when they draw their boundaries of how much they are able to help um, you know fill that void for us. um and so it goes both ways. Both have things on there to work on. They both have elements that they can grow in, but they're not to
Today's a
put a
100.
reliance on each other to be the answer for everything. And I think that's what's missing, because relationship has a foundation nowadays for young adults and maybe even younger to seek that answer, to seek that missing piece of their life in someone else.
Well, and you nailed it, right? I mean, in terms of faith, right? Who any of your listeners, if they're folks of faith or people who are believers, that's a huge thing too, right? Just inviting your faith and God into your relationship, marriage, it allows for less arguments. I mean, I've lived it myself when we're kind of doing that. It's the easier, softer way versus me putting all my expectations, right, on my partner. We talk about making them your higher power, right? Or them
Mm,
making you the higher power, like
yeah.
as if you're here, your job on this earth is to complete me. No, bad news bears.
Mhm.
And that's why a lot of my patients, like, young folks getting into relationships and things, you'll always hear the same language, right? Like, I found this person and it's just going to be great. And it's like, but why? What is it you think's going to happen? And there's a
Mhm.
fantasy, there's a whole fantasy
Yes.
with it. But the
Yes.
more work we do on ourselves, not that we expect less of others, but we know that people do the best they can with what they have, right? Like,
Mhm.
if we believe that, we're going to have a better experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then talking about the experience in the chair, like in sessions, a lot of times in longer term relationships, you'll often hear that they are hoping their partner, their husband, or their wives need to do something different in order for us to find healing, to
Correct.
move towards, the goal of counseling. And it really stumps them when I invite them to talk about themselves or what they would want and how they are communicating and what changes they're and not expecting the change. Their partners can choose to not respond to any of their growth and any of their positive movements, but it will not be if they are able to build themselves up, it will not be a devastation when their partner chooses not to walk alongside. It's sad. Absolutely. It's sad. I'm hoping that if they make the change, their partner can see it and change alongside them. That's what we learn, right? The system cannot stay the same. Once change happens, the whole system needs to change along. And that could mean a new normal, a new, found communication or a better way to relate, or what I don't hope, but it's not within my control, is that the relationship will not survive.
Yeah, and that's what we see a lot, right? All these relationships nowadays ending, it's usually that selfishness, right? It's that they always say it's like one partner got a little bit more selfish than the other at any given point. And that's when it's like, okay, it's time to go. I need my needs met elsewhere. Or what's this joke a friend of mine will always say? She's 45 years married. And I always say, what's the secret? And she's like, well, we didn't call the divorce attorney on the same day. Which I appreciate, right? Like anyone who's married can
Mhm.
appreciate that. Like, yeah, that's true. Like both of you have to stay in it. Look at yourselves, right? To your point, like most patients come to therapy and they do talk about everything everyone's doing to them. And I relate to that too, right? It's like we've all been there where it's like my mom, my dad, this one, my brother, but when you really get to like, what do I need to do to be better? Oh my God. I mean, we've had seasons in our own marriage where it's like, holy cow, the more I can just focus on myself and what I need to change, the cycle changes, right?
Mhm.
Period. Works every time, unless there's obviously like, abuse or something really horrific that, yes, it's
Yeah.
time to go. But for the most part, it is that selfishness. It's the what am I not getting, right? Most people will
Mhm.
say that, like, I need something else. This is not working for me,
Mhm.
and it's like, but what happened? What changed?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And really, as you bring that up, it's not just in relationship or marriages. It also happens in family, where a lot of the discussion seems to circle around they need to do X, Y, Z, and it really throws them off, or maybe sometimes they get annoyed with me when I ask, so how can we help ourselves? How can you, what steps do you want to take to ensure that you become stronger or become more capable of running your own lives? And it just stumps them. Now, I'm not saying I'm not immune to that. Sometimes I wish, family stop doing this, stop doing that, stop asking me this, but I'm giving them such power to have this control over my emotions, over my day, that I have to catch myself to know, like, well, no, it's not on them. It's how I respond, how I communicate. How can I show up to be still respectful? We're still in connection, but I may not live up or may not do what you're asked of me in this moment for that reason. For one reason, I have to be confident in knowing that we'll get through this, even if it leads to disappointment, even if it leads to a small break, if you will, a rupture. It's not going to break us, and that's scary.
Right. And
Scary
that's
for
yeah. It's scary. I think so too. I relate to that. I think it's scary for a lot of people going back to the boundaries. Like, if we were not taught that it's okay to put up a limit, to say, hey, I can't now, maybe later. Hey, I'm having a bad day. Can we circle back later tonight? These are all things I learned later in adulthood, right? It's not like you learn that as a kid, going back to, even our previous talk. There's so many things we weren't taught necessarily, and then you're thrown into being an adult, not just getting the t-shirt and adulting, but like really adulting, right? Like you are an adult, and now you
Hmm.
have to cohabitate and connect, or even with your adult parents or young children, or hey, your boss. It could be anyone. But that
Hmm.
ability to say, oh, can't right now, but let me get back to you this afternoon. It's so
Hmm.
freeing. It's like I don't have to overwhelm myself with, what do I say? How do I please you? And I had oh, I remember this guy had said once, I don't know if I said it on our last talk, but I always love it. He would start his conferences saying to the people in the room, if anyone talks too much, raise your hand. And people would raise their hand. If anyone talks too little, raise your hand. And then people would raise their hand. And he goes, and if anyone's not sure, you probably talk too much. Like, who am I in relationship? Do I need to stop asking for so much, right? Like, do I need to
Yeah.
ask for less? Do I need to, like, I'll give you a little, I'll get vulnerable myself now. Someone had taught my husband and I a long time ago, whenever it gets really rough, just say to each other, is there anything I can do for you? How can I be of service for you this day or this weekend? Like, when it gets rough, like when you have those moments.
Hmm.
Same with family. You can call a mom, you can call a dad, you can call a sister and say, hey, is there something I can pray for you about today? Or is there any way I can be helpful to you today? And it kind of shifts that dynamic of like tension, awkward, we haven't spoken, you're mad at
Hmm.
me, discomfort. It just shifts it to like being of service versus being selfish, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it brings up the idea that having Christ in our lives has helped us with more tools, and definitely a more centered way of looking at bigger picture, looking at ourselves from a more maybe objective lens, looking at our partners and our families with more Christ-like lens. It really does help to not stay so tunnel visioning into what it will make me happy or what will make the other person happy. Um, and I think that is and I get it. And this can go to a different conversation. I would love to have a more further discussion about that. I know some have learned to use religion or even Christianity in a less than helpful way, but um, we're talking more from the healthier lens, from the lens that how God and Jesus has taught us love, and he's the one of the better, if we can tease it into his life, right? He's one of the better ones that knows how to set boundaries. He's so understanding of who he is and how he walks the earth. um I think that really helps to have that in our center, which will lead us then to a question. We got a listener question. um Someone is asking us, and I'll pitch this to you first, Jacqueline. What advice would you give for modern young adult dating relationships? What would be conversations that they would benefit from now, or at least, you know, how would they navigate the relationship?
Wait to have sex. I am so honest. Let me tell you, I talk to my teens in session very clearly.
Mhm.
Just wait, wait. Share about yourself, get to know each other, have coffee, have a smoothie, go to a movie, but just wait. Don't take it to that level of that physicalness that I have to tell you. I mean, we're seeing 11-year-olds now, engaging
Mhm.
in these types of sexual relationships that their frontal lobe is mush. They don't even know
Mhm.
what's happening. And so I'm very clear with them. Like, just think of it as a friendship. Think of it as an
Mhm.
experience. I know your
Yes.
body's reacting in so many different ways, and I validate that, right? Like, tell them
Mhm.
that. Like, I understand your
Absolutely.
hormones are raging and you want
Mhm.
to do all these different things, but remember, the dynamic changes very quickly when you bring the physical aspect to it. So, as much
Mhm.
as you can, and I'm very honest with them, very transparent, just wait, just
S
pause.
Mhm.
Once you do the kiss, then the next thing comes and the next thing, and it's a snowball. It happens
Yeah.
very fast.
Mhm.
And then you're in another relationship. It's a whole different experience. And so I like to be honest with them.
Mhm.
Eye contact, put your phones away, have real talk.
S
Because this
Mhm.
new generation, oh my goodness, you could see, and I love you teenagers out there, but they'll be at a table, 20 kids, and they're all texting each other. No one's talking.
Mhm. Yep.
So, encouraging that, like, hey, put your phone away, talk to each other, ask questions, be
S
curious. Is this someone I'd want to have a long term relationship with, right? Like, we have to
Mhm.
ask ourselves this a lot. And I don't think young people do that often enough. So, kind of bringing that real talk to it.
Absolutely. And this brings back to the role of our parents because of how early kids are now exposed to those media forms. If you're not talking to them, they'll learn, and they may not. Well, I'm gonna say more than likely not learn from the correct source and correct teachers because the internet is unfiltered, right? If it's not the internet, then it's their friends who learn it from the internet. So have that opening with your child, have that discussion about body boundaries, and definitely have the education and walking them through that. Can wait on sex, and more than that, you can learn about all aspects of love, all aspects about respect, all aspects about relating to one another, communication, so much more than just this one element. And it is also an important element to learn because, um, you know, uh, touch, non sexual touch, I'm referring to, is something that we need to teach. It's something that we need to be mindful of boundaries and being able to have honest and open conversation with one another and learning about others. Don't jump into a relationship even, right? Learning about yourself first and foremost, then learn about how other people experience may have affected their experiences, what they see, and are you both clear about uh yourselves and your values. So much
So
you
much.
know yeah, so much elements around relationship.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And to not get lost in someone else. It's so quick. It happens so fast. We see a lot of these young people getting lost in these relationships. So as long as it's something that's, as healthy as it can be, more of a friendship, more of a getting to know you, I mean, that's amazing. But I know it's hard for teens. It's really hard. Their body's changing. They're reading so many things. Their friends are talking. There's so much pressure. It's hard to put the brakes. So I think just checking in with your kiddo at all times, so how's it going and talk to me. And again, having the clear boundaries with them. Certain
Hmm.
things we don't allow, certain things we allow, right?
Yes.
Because listen, at the end of the day, even teens, they want structure. They
Yeah.
don't want to rule the roost. They don't want
Hmm.
to be allowed to do whatever they want. Like they think they do. But the minute like they have a friend that the parent is strict, I had someone tell me recently, like, it's so nice. I had someone tell me how their friend's parents were so strict, a young girl. And she's like, it's so nice. The parents really care. Like you could tell they like have all these apps on her and they worry about her. She's like, my parents never really ask me like where I am or who I'm
Mm.
with. And it touched me, right? It made me feel like I think all of us really want that. As much as they fight back, don't let them
Yeah.
convince you. They want the
Yes.
structure.
I think there's a healthy element of letting them grow, explore, but they need to have a good foundation of structure. Without that, then it's harder to listen to ourselves. What's right, what's wrong, what's okay, what's not okay. That's where we really want to hone in on how we model boundaries, not just talk about them, but how we model them. How we model it's okay to say I'm overwhelmed and I need some help, some guide. So even just um, even if you don't have the answer as a parent, being there as a secure base will help them learn that uh, I can come back, I can calm down, I can learn to navigate life and navigate not alone, not being alone. So, there's so much more to unpack here, but
There's so
uh,
much.
we will have time. We're just giving you bite-sized information each time and hoping that this jog up something for you to ask us, some join our dialogue, even, you know, friends, audience. We will want you invite you to continue to be friends with boundaries. So, Jacqueline, anything to sign off us on today?
Oh, I just hope, people get something out of it in terms of, how can I show up better today? How can I, that relationship that's bothering you, whether it's work, family, love, friendship, you show up a little different today, right? That you show up your best self. Maybe if you're someone who asks a lot for what they need, maybe don't ask. And if you're
Mm,
someone who rarely asks for what they need, today might be your day to say, hey, I was thinking maybe we could do this.
mm.
And you'll know who you are. You know who you are in these relationships, and just show up a little differently, and that's when the magic happens.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And as usual, audience, I always want to leave you a resource. And this time I am recommending a book. I don't know, Jacqueline, if you heard of this book. She Deserves Better: Raising Girls
Mm.
to Resist Toxic Teachings on Sex, Self, and Speaking Up.
Yes, excellent. Oh, very
Yes.
good. Yes.
It was a wonderful book, and I wish I had learned or read this or had this. I know this was just released last year. Had this even as a male, even as a husband, because it really gives us a perspective that about women, about girls that we've never been taught to be curious about, taught to have that understanding of what they've been told, they've been exposed to, and the pressures they've been. Then it really helps with empathy. It really helps with consideration. So, if you like to adopt this book, buy this book, there is an affiliate link in the show notes as well. And until next time, friends, continue to think about boundaries, continue to have dialogues. I look forward to any comments and suggestions you might have for us as we continue to walk together as friends with boundaries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris.